Welcome to the discussion. My guest today is Lauren Knausenberger, the Air Force's Deputy Chief Information Officer. Welcome, Lauren. Always good to catch up, and obviously congratulations on the promotion to Deputy CIO.
Thanks, Jason. Always great to be here.
Let me set just a little bit of context for our discussion today. The Air Force has been on an aggressive modernization journey, I'll say for the last 2 years, though maybe longer. The service has aligned its funding, its policies, its strategy, and its people to dramatically change the way it gets out from under legacy systems and continues to have the best technology for its airmen and women and civilian employees. The transformation effort includes a host of initiatives from enterprise IT as a service to workforce training to the use of zero trust principles and identity and access management to secure data. So where is the Air Force heading over the next few years, and what lessons has it learned from the previous few years? Well, that's where my guest comes in. Once again, Lauren Knausenberger, the Deputy CIO of the Air Force. Let's just jump right in, Lauren. What is the latest with the Air Force's technology modernization transformation effort? Give me the update.
Sure. So there have been a lot of things that have happened over the last 3 years, and you've been able to kind of follow some of this journey with me as it's happened. So the things that are happening that are pretty good at this point, pretty solid. Cloud One has gone very well. We have an increasing number of applications there. Whenever we're doing new applications, they're going into Cloud One. And so I would say that the Air Force really has leaned forward in getting to the cloud, which of course we all know is one of those key amplifiers for digital transformation in general. We also have all migrated into Microsoft Office 365. And for the first time, the Air Force and actually the entire DoD, part in thanks to COVID, we are all in collaboration tools, Microsoft Teams, and folks are working in the offices at the Pentagon and at home in their home offices seamlessly using team rooms, using video calls. It's something that has never really happened before in the Department of Defense. So that has been incredible. Previously, that type of a work model was reserved for the quote unquote innovation community, the Kessel Runs of the world, the AFWorkses of the world. So that's been a really cool thing to level the playing field with access to those collaboration tools. DevSecOps continues to have a lot of really great progress. We have the Platform One team that's providing enterprise-wide DevSecOps tools and processes, everything from you show up as a developer and you're ready to deploy your first app, onboarding you into the platform, giving you all the tools that you need to do your job. And within 2 weeks, you could be deploying an application with an authority to operate all the way through to production. And in the Department of Defense, again, that is huge. You've heard all of the horror stories about how long it takes for us to accredit things. We have built this thing in such an incredible way. Everything is automated. You have the tools, you show up, you push it to production, good to go. And that's at multiple levels of classification. So that's been pretty incredible. We are investing more in artificial intelligence. We have our guys up at MIT who are working on an accelerator model that brings in the best of academia, the commercial world, and the military, as well as the lab community, to work together on artificial intelligence on a variety of really compelling use cases that will not only help the military, but help society writ large. And that has been a pretty exciting project. On the enterprise IT side, I have to tell you, there's been some really great work done, but it's where it concerns me the most that we have done so much incredible work up the stack. We've had a lot of attention up the stack. We've moved to the cloud, we're leveraging AI, and in pockets, we continue to do incredible things. We did a demo a few weeks back where we tracked a cruise missile in real time and took it out with a hypervelocity gun, pretty much using AI in our own cloud and using AR and VR for the texts that we're going through. And we had a room full of generals that were just cheering like it was like the best football game you've ever been to. And these kids, with their AR, VR goggles, I mean, they are tracking this missile like they're just loving this very cool video game. But at the end of the day, we have not invested at the bottom of the stack as much as we need to. It's not sexy, it's really hard to do, it's expensive, but our infrastructure continues to suffer. And so as CIO, I am now laser focused on that bottom level. that network, the transport layer? How do we make sure that when we go to follow that cruise missile, 100% of the time at every Air Force base around the world, do our commanders know that they are going to have the consistent bandwidth to follow it? So we have enterprise IT as a service. We're doing some great work with Microsoft and AT&T, have pilots going on at a few bases where we're going to ride commercial pipes. You know, folks have said, hey, I don't like the DoD networks. Great. We're going to see what Microsoft and AT&T can do and just jump to the future. The problem is sometimes you have to hop in your DeLorean and go back to 1985, and you have to go get something that is still imprisoned within the AFNet or within the DoDIN. And it's quite a rescue mission sometimes. And so we've had teams that have done some incredible work in streamlining transactional paths. We're having some teams go through and get rid of extra hops that we don't need in terms of like proxy servers, for instance. And we're also doing some really great work across multiple agencies and services at busting through policy. And so my goal is to see all of that just end to end, to have a subset of airmen and commanders just literally clicking their heels together because they did not know that IT could be this great. They did not know that they could be this enabled, that they could have everything they need to do their job easily at their disposal. Because I got to tell you, our military, these are the hardest working guys I've ever seen in my life. And when I say guys, I mean guys and gals. It's incredible what they will do, but we make the easy things too hard for them. And they didn't sign up to fight bad IT. You know, they signed up to fight bad guys. And so anything that I can do as CIO to help them to fight their mission, I want to do that.
All right, ton to unpack there. Let me start with the pandemic a little bit, because I think that's one of those topics that continues to come up at a lot of conferences and a lot of events that I go to about how it's impacted IT modernization. You mentioned this idea of DoD's all on a single platform. We've all moved to Office 365 as an example. Now we have the seamless collaboration tools or video calls. Is there other downstream effects, whether on Cloud One or EIT as a service or DevSecOps, or has it been the opposite, where because of the need to be more digital, to get more things online, the pandemic has actually pushed things faster?
So the pandemic has done both. There were a lot of things that we did have to halt because of the pandemic, but overall, I think that the cultural transformation and the leveling of the playing field helped a lot. Because unfortunately, you know, a lot of our airmen, they're out in the field, they know that things are broken and they're trying to do things on the move. But a lot of us back at the Pentagon, we have comm teams. You know, we have devices that work. If a senior ranking official says, oh, something's wrong, like it gets fixed fast. And so, but we have to make it, you know, equal to everyone. And coronavirus made it equal for everyone. Everyone was at home trying to figure out how to make this work. Everyone realized that those airmen that have been saying for years that, like, man, it really stinks. Such an understatement when I'm not in the building trying to do my job. And so all of a sudden, day one of COVID, I said the other day we had 20,000 VPN connections at the beginning of COVID. I had to go back and fact check myself. It was 7,000 VPN connections at the beginning of COVID for 650,000 people. So, I mean, right there by the numbers, we were not poised for telework. But we had an incredible team. You know, we told the IT team, look, this is your time on the front lines. You got to get everybody up fast, act like you have money. And those guys went out and they got us up to 400,000 VPN connections. And they got us down from 40 hops to send an email, which is ridiculous. But because they were funded and they had such focus, they got us down to 8 hops. So you can send email so much faster than you used to. They cut through some of the legacy just because we said, guys, this is your mission, go do it. We're going to fund you right now. And so that level of focus, that level of cultural change, I don't think anything else would have done this to us short of a war. So, you know, I think that, you know, COVID is kind of the crisis that we need to really drive forward the digital transformation, and we're trying to not let a crisis go to waste.
I heard that. I've heard that so many times throughout the last 6 months from CIOs like yourself who have said it's in some ways that's the silver lining of this whole pandemic, is how non-IT people realized, hey, this IT thing is kind of important and I can't do my job without the ability to connect back to the network, to get on the network, to have a laptop, just the simple things. But you mentioned at the beginning that there's a few things that had to slow down or had to be stopped. Are those efforts starting to pick back up now, or is that still something that we'll see what the budget looks like in 2021, and we'll see what other kind of resources that can be kind of pulled together to continue some of these transformation efforts?
So a lot of those efforts have picked back up, and you have people kind of doing, blue team, gold team, kind of rotating who's in the office and who's not. And there were a couple of migrations that, that we didn't get to finish before COVID that now we're able to do. They did require a heavier touch from people. Like we were in the middle of upgrading people's cell phones. That actually does require a team to procure the phones and configure them and hand them out, things like that. Migrating people to our more secure Office 365 environment, we hadn't completely finished before COVID. And that also requires higher touch for some of our senior leaders. And so, those types of things were held up. Some of the classified meetings were held up, and there are classified meetings that have to happen between engineering teams sometimes to drive forward some of our more complex digital initiatives. And so those were held up for a period of time and are just now getting back on track. And I think we're prioritizing really well, quite frankly, on which of those meetings need to be classified, which of those need to be in person, and which ones can we handle virtually, and which ones are not quite as important. Where can people just run? But ironically, our IT budget is actually going down, whereas the rest of industry, people have spent a significant amount of additional money in IT, even moving forward into the next few years, because they see that we permanently need to be spending more, that digital will take over, that better processes will in some cases mean lower headcount. But our budget is shrinking somewhat. And so I think that we'll have a reckoning sometime in the next year or two where it's just like, all right, we have not committed the spend to what we need to do. We have to do it now. It then becomes a budget crisis. And then that'll kind of be the next round in the battle and see what we've done.
You bring up this idea of budget, and let's just go there for a second. Has the Air Force done a decent job of getting out from under technical debt? And is there the concept of O&M, operations and maintenance, versus being in the constant state of DME or incremental development? How do you view kind of the technical debt versus the incremental development?
Well, I'll give you an analogy to get there. So when we build airplanes, we're very willing to wait 10 years or more to see the airplane be built. We're very willing to spend a lot of money up front to get that design right. We don't seem to have that same litmus test for completely redesigning our networks. And so, we're going through with ITAS right now. We have a great new design, but because we don't have a full jet yet, it's kind of like that constant, let's, kind of milestone it. And so I think because our budget picture gets, tied up sometimes because, you can't jump to the future in one fell swoop. We have to go much more slowly than we should. And I think also in the federal government, we have a hard time sometimes realizing that things take a lot of upfront investment, and that there is a period of time over which that pays off, and that it takes several years before you hit that break-even point. And so we're at the point where we either have to spend a whole bunch of money to basically give, crutches to our ailing infrastructure, or we have to spend a good amount of money to completely blow it up and start over. And I haven't seen from a budget standpoint us go all in as much as I think we should be. But I think that some of the successes that we're able to demonstrate here in the near future on the infrastructure, and people coming to that realization that you don't get to decision advantage, you don't get that fast straight loop, you don't get that machine-driven insight that drives your joint all-domain command and control unless you have a network that is almost 100% up. And the thing is, moving to the cloud is incredible. And I also think it's hilarious how we sometimes talk about it. There are still executives out there that think that because we moved to the cloud, it's solved everything. But what it means is, yes, we have this incredibly flexible environment that gives us so much more possibility. But we're no longer just running that on our computer in our office or the server down the hall. We now need almost 100% uptime to connect to that cloud to do all those amazing things. And what's even funnier is during COVID, our user experience scores are going way up. People are at home, they're on their FiOS, and people pay their FiOS bill. But a lot of times in the military, we're on dial-up, and we're kind of saying, well, but what do you mean it costs more to go from dial-up to FiOS? So we have to kind of wrestle with that, or to go from the flip phone to the iPhone. So we're kind of wrestling with this new world that's just not industrial. And we thought that we were there, and we've done all these great things. But we have to show that long-term commitment that we're really serious and make the hard choices.
Lauren, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we can continue our conversation. You're listening to the discussion Modern Government, How COVID-19 Changed the Course of Digital Transformation, sponsored by KPMG on Federal News Network.